Dear friends, Iva Radivojević. Thank you and welcome to Nürnberg, Iva.
Thank you so much for having me and the film. Thank you all for coming and for staying.
I should mention that this is the second film by Iva that we've had in our competition. And we kind of counted back. It's been a couple of years since Evaporating Borders, a wonderful, more documentary essay.
A couple of years or a decade, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Iva, well, first of all, thank you for this film that impressed us really when we watched it the first time. I will start with the first question first, obviously. It's like, where was the seed that grew into this film? And then maybe we can talk about structure, because it's about a specific time and place and a specific moment for the main character. But it's fleeting. Everything is fleeting in the film. So maybe you can take us through also the process of how the film ended up the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, maybe I'll answer in a way that kind of combines the two questions, which is, I mean, it came about spontaneously. I was not imagining that I would make a film like this. But somehow it came out through a poetry workshop that I took in the States with one of my favorite poets. And he gave us a prompt. He gave us many different prompts. And there was one prompt that he gave us that sort of struck something in my process. And the prompt was that he said, okay, you write this, few paragraphs of a semi-essay, let's say, but each paragraph has to start with the same sentence. So there has to be a repeating sentence. And something about this repetition, this looping, unlocked something in my head. And I wrote the first 4 or 5 stories in that one sitting. So that was something to do with sort of structure. So there's something about this looping and this sort of memory returning to the same place that triggered something. And I guess like anytime that I was asked to remember something from my childhood, and I've had many different memories in my childhood, and I also grew up in different places, I would always return to that same room that we see in the film. And I started being curious, like, why am I always returning to the same room, to that specific place? And so something about these memories coming back to haunt you, almost like ghosts, became interesting. And this investigation of memory, which is both fallible, not to be trusted, because it changes over time, but also this sort of effect of that haunting, or just revisiting. So that became the structure of the film. This kind of like fragmented looping that is both informative, it can be violent, it can be many different things.
Since it's very specific and it's the conflation in the conception of the protagonist, and I guess also we have to talk about the narrator as well, but of this phone call about a family affair with the beginning of the war. Is that also the moment you were returning to? Because now you just talked about the room that you're returning to, but is that autobiographically close to the setting, the whole setting that you would return to?
Yeah, it is, and like the film suggests, the phone call is the one thing that I remember most vividly. So every other memory that came from that time was sort of like circling around the phone call. And I don't know how far apart these memories are, whether they're 2 weeks apart or 6 months apart or a year apart, but they were all tied to this phone call. And so it made sense that this phone call will be a returning thing. It's always the same day and the same time, but different things happen. Because time gets so sort of confused when we're, thinking back. I mean, dislocated time also, we were talking about earlier. So I made this sort of like structure in which we're almost like, stuck in one moment, but the reality is changing all the time. And of course, at the end of each story, the bags are packed and we go. And it's like you can't really trust your own memory. I don't know when we left. I don't know how we left. I know I have details. I have small pictures of things, but, they kind of like all unite together to create some picture, but I don't know how the details actually, come together anyway.
It's the moment that you're returning to, or the main character in the film is returning to, is like historically it's a momentous it's a huge moment also, right? The beginning of a war, yet we never see. It's hardly ever intrudes into the anecdotes or chapters or fragments of memory that we see in the film, but the disruption is so big that I'm assuming that's also why they're kind of always a little bit to the side of something that might be super important that is happening in the same moment, but we don't see that. We see something that is a little off. Can you tell me about those shifts? You're going into focus, out of focus. Sometimes we can see the background, so it's trying to catch something, but it's always eluding. Can you tell us more about that? It's also challenging for a filmmaker, right, to still translate to an audience what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm. I think mainly, my interest was to get into the emotional space of a child when they're being torn away from their family, their community, their language, and everything else. So there's this moment of tearing, which I call a small death, as you're kind of like torn away from everything that you know. That was the interest. And so we're in the mindset of a child, in the world of a child, the language of a child. And, in a child's world, everything else is sort of on the periphery. They understand things, but they don't really understand things. The present moment and what's around is kind of, they can sense the danger, but they're not really tuned into the whole picture. So this was sort of the impetus for that. And obviously, I wanted to sort of suggest that threat that's all around, but I was interested in just like the emotional landscape of this location. And I didn't want to comment on, particularly the country or ex-Yugoslavia. I wanted it to be kind of like a universal story. This is happening everywhere. We have multiple genocides at the moment happening. We have dislocation all over the world. So I wanted to be a story that can relate to the moment right now.
Hey, thank you very much. What struck me among many things, talking about the emotional landscape and this little depth, that you were saying that each phone call seemed to be followed by the opposite of this very loud sound of a phone call, so by the silence that was underlying this loneliness that pervaded the whole movie. And so I thought at the end that this was a movie about the most deepest loneliness that cannot be translated in any other way than with this silence. Am I on a path that also aligns with what was your intention, or?
Yeah, but stop, because you're going to make me cry. So,
okay.
Yeah. I think that's the essence of what this location is, that you're left extremely alone. And I think that what I wanted to do in the film is why it's concentrating on all these relationships and hanging out with the kids or whatever, because I wanted to sort of concentrate on everything that's being lost, all this love and community that's around, and and what you're being torn away from. And I guess I'm not gonna cry, so let's move on.
But maybe something you can tell us, this is on the surface but also not. Like, how did you find your main actress? Because I think she's amazing, and it must have, I don't know, maybe it was very easy or very difficult to convey to her. I mean, she has to act in an environment that is very rich, and there's a lot of things happening that are not in the script, that she's not acting, but she has to understand, and she has to probably also convey the moment that we just missed. Where did you find her, and how did you work with her? I think she's amazing.
She's incredible. I was a little bit lucky. There are a few schools in Novi Sad, in this place where we filmed, that do these after-school programs, and they're not even some of them more professional than others professional. And so we went to a few of these schools, and the first school that I went to, I noticed Natalia, And, you know, I knew obviously because all of the people in the film are actual people that I knew and who existed. And clearly the young girl is, you know, my younger self. But I knew the essence that I was looking for, the essence of all of these characters. And when I saw her, similar to what you were commented on, she would sort of sit in the corner and be solitary. But then she went on stage, and then she some kind of a presence came out of her. She exuded some kind of a confidence that was really special. And we didn't even do rehearsals. I just kind of sensed that she would be the one. She agreed to do it. We didn't have much funding for this film, so we literally practiced just before shooting. But she had such a range, and she had this gestural expressions that were incredible. I mean, she really sort of surprised us all. And not only that, she would direct. She would say, well, she was 11 years old when we did this. And she would say, well, what if I do it this way? What if I do this? And I'm like, great. And then similarly, we found out that we had some similarities in the upbringing in terms of family relations and stuff like that. She has an older sister, she had a father who... So there was some kind of like a relational thing as well that was happening. And we just got lucky. She's extremely, extremely talented. Even in the scene where she sort of tears up, before that she would say, you know, I can cry. I had no intention to make her cry, but she said, I can do it if you want me to. And I said, okay. So, yeah.
So with this, what remains for me now is to thank you so much for coming and for this amazing film. Iva, I invite all of you, also Switch Cinemas, and see in a while Silence of Reason. Join us in the lounge, in the festival lounge, in the front. Tonight we have live radio show, we have live music and DJs. But let's not do it before we give a big round of applause to Iva. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you.